They also harvest crops like flax, which goes into everything from banknotes to tea bags. Behind the ordinary is the extraordinary. Coming up, they have to survive the stormiest of seas. So how do you design an unsinkable boat? The secrets behind lifeboats. Next on How Do They Do It?
Catch up. Keep it here as we go behind the scenes at 8.
A hurricane is blowing out at sea. The desperate crew of a storm-tossed boat send out a distress signal. Who do they expect will risk their lives to rescue them? Lifeboat volunteers are the heroes of the hour. They venture out to sea just as everyone else is trying to scramble back to dry land. So what's the one bit of equipment a lifeboat crew would value above all else? The holy grail of lifeboats, one that will never, ever sink. The designers of the Titanic famously tried and failed. After years of development, this lifeboat is about to face the ultimate test. To prove it's unsinkable. Have marine engineers finally cracked it? If they have, there'll be a lot of grateful lifeboat volunteers. The Atlantic coast of Britain. The waters can be treacherous. When a storm brews up, massive waves can so easily flip over a small boat in a matter of seconds. So to set out on a nighttime rescue attempt in the middle of a storm takes an absurd amount of courage. Coxswain Alan Tarby has been a volunteer for the Royal National Lifeboat Institution for 20 years.
Living your life waiting for a call, it can be very difficult because obviously you can't really plan things because you never know when the call's going to come. You have to live your life expecting the call to come at any minute.
The coxswain never knows what the sea could throw at him, so it's vital that his lifeboat is designed so that it rolls back upright if capsized. This is just a dummy run, and today the seas are calm. But the crew is hoping that before the next big storm, they'll have taken delivery of a very special boat. Plymouth is 60 kilometres down the coast, and here on the banks of the River Tamar, the latest class of lifeboat is about to be tested. Today, the designer of the boat, naval architect Neil Chaplin, has come to Plymouth to witness the operation.
We're here for our own confidence to make sure that the boat is going to do what we've calculated, that she will come back upright. We're here for the builders to make sure that she is as watertight as she should be, that all the bolts have been done up correctly, and although it looks like there's lots of hanging around today, there are lots of nerves hanging on to see if she is going to come back upright.
If Neil's design works, it should be impossible to capsize this boat. Every time she goes under, she should, in theory, come right back up. The secret lies deep within her hull. A self-righting boat needs a low centre of gravity. So Neil has strategically positioned the heaviest components of the boat.
So here in the engine room are where the other heavy items are. Very keen on keeping that centre of gravity down. So we have two 1,000 horsepower Caterpillar C18 engines, port and starboard, well, and they're driving gearboxes, all combining to produce a low centre of gravity down in the bottom of the boat. That combined with all the buoyancy at the top means that when she's upside down, she's inherently unstable and wants to flip back upright.
None of this will work, though, unless the wheelhouse is completely watertight. The inside of the boat has been sealed and fortified to resist the most violent waves. The wheelhouse is made of light reinforced fiberglass to reduce weight toward the top of the boat. The windows are designed to withstand the pressure of a 9-metre high wave. But what happens to the crew as the boat is spinning around? Neil uses sandbags in their place. He needs to know that they will remain safely strapped in during a capsize. It's showtime. In full view of Plymouth Harbour, Neil is about to discover whether his calculations are correct.
That's where there is a little bit of nerves.
A crane is used to simulate a giant wave capsizing the boat. Hopefully the crane won't later be needed to salvage Neil's boat from the bottom of the harbour. It's been years in the making. Will it work?
Thanks very much, Neil. Well done.
A modest smile of satisfaction from Neil Chaplin. In only a few seconds, theory has turned into practice. A lifeboat that won't sink. This particular boat will soon be headed for Scotland, and the crew has come down for the day to inspect her.
You never ever thought you'd see a boat like this and an RMI fleet. You know, it's the boats that the airline make are second to none.
And for Neil, time for a closer look.
We had a small amount of water coming from a screen wash pipe that will be fixed, but other than that, like a very good test. Yeah.
It's a big day in Plymouth. Sometime soon, this Tamar-class lifeboat may mean the difference between life and death on the high seas. Coming up, developing new kinds of candy for the candy connoisseurs. Next, on How Do They Do It? The frozen plains and snow-capped mountains of Canada in the deep midwinter. The pioneers who settled this country must have been a hardy, desperate lot, but settle they did in St. Stephen, New Brunswick, and built Chocolate Town. This is North America's answer to Willy Wonka, the Ganong Candy Factory, where they've been turning rivers of chocolate and vats of syrup into confectionery for over a century and a quarter. This massive factory produces 3 million tons of chocolate, more than 1 billion jelly beans, and over 7 million of these, the so-called chicken bone, every year. So how many Oompa Loompas does it take to make a chicken bone? And how do they do it? Ganong's speciality is indeed the chicken bone. This garishly coloured nibble has been a hit for more than 120 years, but no one can quite remember how it got its name.
It's a big mystery, I think. It's just, they've always been called chicken bones. I don't know if it's because of the way they look, a little bit like a chicken bone with the bittersweet chocolate in the center, but, it's certainly unique, that's for sure.
They don't look much like chicken bones to us, and we need hardly say no chickens were hurt in the making of these sweets. Instead, you start with glucose syrup. As the warm syrup is kneaded, a carefully measured amount of its distinctive pink colouring is added. Then the batch is taken over to the puller. These giant arms, coated in cinnamon flavouring, allow air into the mixture, lightening the colour. And as you would expect from Chocolate Town, they've been doing it the same way for years.
It's dated equipment, very, very old, but it's the old-fashioned way of doing things. So, of course, it's very hands-on.
Now the candy is ready to be spread out like a blanket. And its chocolate centre is scooped in. Then the Dayglow candy and chocolate beast is manhandled over to the machine that will stretch it out into a long thread, ready for baking. The candy is fed into a machine to shape the thread into uniform-sized pieces, like a string of mini sausages. The chicken bone is a speciality of Ganong, but these little fellas are big the world over. In Chocolate Town, they turn out no less than 2 billion jelly beans a year. In the kettle room, sugar, glucose and starch are melted together to make the soft jelly bean centres. The molten liquid is poured into moulds. Now it has to be cooled for 24 hours before it can go on to the next stage, flavouring. Here, the bright colours and tangy flavours are added in these 50-year-old copper pans. But these jelly beans are not yet ready to eat. The problem is their surface is too rough, so before each jelly bean leaves the factory, like a diamond, it must be polished. And that's how 3,000 kilos of sugar are transformed by the New Brunswick Oompa Loompas into 2 million jelly beans. Meanwhile, in another part of the factory, an experimental line of chocolates is being scrutinised by a panel of expert critics. The future of Chocolate Town hangs in the balance.
It has an appealing appearance and taste. Melting characteristics, taste excellent, creamy and smooth.
Phew. The guys downstairs are given the green light and a brand new flavour is born. The maple